Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We start the post-lunch session. The topic is Building Safe and Secure Cities. For this, we have our chairperson, Mr. Neeraj Katariya from PwC. May I request you to come up on the dais, please? Our keynote speaker for this session is Mr. Joel. He's from Oracle. Mr. Justin Bean. Can I have you on the dais, please? Mr. Kamal Arora. Mr. Rajesh Mathur, and Mr. Samir Datt. Can I have you on the dais, please? Now, may I request a chairperson to take over the session?
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this post-lunch session on security and surveillance issues in smart cities. When the survey was conducted on the eGov app regarding the prominent issues which we are facing in this country, the transportation was the first one and the security and surveillance was a close second. It's been an area of concern for us in terms of women's safety and all, the way our growth of the cities are happening, the way migration happens, and otherwise, how do we ensure that the safety and the security of women and children are taken care of with least amount of intrusive infrastructure being put in place. In that context, smart cities are playing, in smart cities deployment, the surveillance is playing a key role. Some of those projects are standalone surveillance one, and many of those are getting integrated with other smart projects which are being deployed, like smart poles and interesting ones like public bike sharing too. While these standalone projects are ensuring the basic use cases which were developed, there is an element of an integrated command and control system where the feed from other deployments are getting clubbed with security and surveillance, and integrated use cases are being created to drive again the same security issue in terms of how do we better respond to emergency situations once we spot it, either through some manual intervention or through some automated intelligence running on the data that has been captured. On that note, I'll start with the session. We have eminent set of speakers with us. First one will be Mr. Justin. He's going to bring his experience of working with the Hitachi, being a leading player in this domain, and how they are customizing their solutions for Indian market, what implementation they have done so far, and what are the challenges that they have seen and how they have addressed those. Mr. Justin.
Anyway, so I'll just talk then, no big deal. So we're talking about safe cities and smart cities here. So if we just kind of zoom out and look at the smart city aspect to it, I kind of see this in 3 time scales and 3 different approaches. So in order to keep people safe, we need to first and foremost be able to respond to incidents, right? So the people who are out there every day risking their lives to keep us safe need the situational awareness, they need the data, they need the ability to collaborate in order to stop an incident from occurring when it's happening. I can use that. The second one is the individual. So who are the people who are committing crimes? Who are the people that, thank you, that we're trying to reach? So I actually am based in San Francisco. I'll talk over here. And we have a prison nearby called San Quentin. It has about a 65% recidivism rate. So 65% of the people who go to that prison end up coming back. They get out on the street, they don't know what else to do or whatever, and they come back. A friend of mine works at an organization that teaches these prisoners how to code. When they get out of prison, they're able to get jobs as software developers, and they have a 7% recidivism rate. That's a huge impact on public safety. So giving these people the opportunity that they need as an individual in order to live the life that they need that doesn't involve crime. The third time scale of that is societal. So when we think about it from the bigger picture, how do we create a society where a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old today doesn't grow up to commit crimes and lives in a society where they see a world of opportunity that is much more valuable to them than committing crimes and doing the things that make us not safe. So I'll just run through a couple slides real quick. Would you rather be safer when you're at the airport, or when you're at a public park, or when you're at a shopping mall? It's kind of a ridiculous question to ask, right? We need to be safe wherever we are. So that means every single organization in the city needs to provide a safe place for people to be. That includes all of the things that I mentioned, as well as all the infrastructure. So we need to approach it from a holistic standpoint. We need to be able to protect people first and foremost, then we need to respond to incidents, we need to investigate them, and then be able to prosecute. There's a lot of things we need to do here, including bringing together the data that we have about what's happening in real time, and then we need to bring together the data for investigating those crimes after they happen in order to improve our ability to respond holistically. Now, there's a lot of different data out there. There's a lot of different systems that give us that situational awareness. Things like gunshot detectors, live video, face matching, all these things, but they're in different silos and living different systems. So what we need to do is bring those things together, either at a command and control center or on a mobile device, so people have the intelligence that they need at the edge. Those officers who are out there responding to these things can see what's happening before they respond, so they know that it's either a really dangerous situation and they need to call for backup, or it's something that's, you know, children playing and they can just come in and play a parent. Predictive crime analytics are coming out, which are really powerful, which enable us to prevent crime in the first place from happening, which is the goal, right? We want to keep people safe. We don't want to just be responding to crimes after they happen. So if we know where a crime is likely to happen, we can proactively send officers there to patrol so that it doesn't happen, or if it does, they're nearby in order to catch the perpetrator. Public safety is not just policing, it's also about keeping infrastructure safe. Australia had a bunch of wildfires a few years ago, and a lot of these fires were caused from utility poles falling over, catching on fire, things like that. What we've done in those cases is we've outfitted those utility poles with sensors so they can see from afar which ones are starting to turn over, which ones are starting to arc or set on fire. Much more effective than sending people out in trucks to take a look and see what's already caught on fire. Keeping people safe in stadiums is a big deal. Things like drones are emerging as a threat. People can easily load chemical or biological weapons onto these devices, fly them into stadiums. So we've worked with stadiums to deploy not only video surveillance and video analytics to help us understand what's happening and respond to incidents, but things that like drone detection and denial that detect a drone coming in, can stop it or send it back. So there's a lot of these really interesting new technologies that can help us keep people safe. Data-driven policing is a big deal. So I don't know how many people read the book Moneyball, but there are a lot of policing organizations that are taking that crime data and playing a bit of Moneyball with it and able to, in order to prevent crime, reduce crime, and respond to it more effectively. Austin, Texas is one of these, just as an example. Just real quickly, I'm not going to do a sales pitch, but just talking about things that Hitachi's doing in India. We're doing renewable energy management, helping with building, smart building controls, smart city development coalitions, and developing or delivering transit and keeping those transit systems safe. A lot of police organizations that we've worked with, and just one real thing, that the IoT market, which is becoming more and more important to the public safety industries, consists of two things. One is operational technology, or OT. These are the physical things in the world, like the trains, the elevators, the automotive parts, things like that. The other side is the IT. So this is the software, the infrastructure, the storage, and all of these things, artificial intelligence. So what makes us kind of special is that we have the combination of both of these and a lot of expertise on both sides of this market. And that is what naturally makes us an IoT provider, and we're providing a lot of this to public safety organizations, both public and private. So I'll stop there. This is what I started with, and I think that we need to approach this not just from a incident standpoint, but start thinking about the individuals who are committing the crimes and how can we help them live lives that don't push them towards committing crimes? And also societally, how can we shape cities, how can we shape our societies in ways that provide a better environment for everyone so that crime doesn't, crime becomes less of a compelling outcome for a lot of people, or what they seek to do to earn their living wage. So I'll end there, just a few minutes there, and turn it over to our next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Justin. Our next speaker is Mr. Joel. He is an industry veteran, spends years in Oracle and Microsoft. Mr. Joel is heading infrastructure, education, and health at Oracle in his current role. Mr. Joel, over to you, sir.
Great. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and welcome to this session. The topic that we're talking about, safe and secure cities, is, I think, one of the most important conversations that are occurring within the public sector space, within the smart city space, and really broadly across the way governments look at the types of services that they're providing to their citizens. I think Justin asked the question, which is a very relevant question: how safe do you want to be? Or how safe do you need to be in order to live, to work, or to recreate, to play in a specific area? And the answer is always, I want safety to be the #1 priority. The challenge, though, is balancing safety requirements with budgetary restrictions, with other priorities within the city. And this is a question I see frequently. So I live in the city of Redmond, which is a suburb of Seattle in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. And in Seattle, there are ballot measures frequently where they're asking the citizens to take additional money out of their pocket to pay taxes or levies to increase their support of things like public safety, education, public health programs, better transportation networks. In fact, we just had a $3 billion bond that was passed that will focus on bringing light rail from the metropolitan center in the city out to the suburbs. And the questions that people are constantly asking are, am I willing to pay for light rail service to improve my transportation model, or do I want the money to be used in other areas? And very realistically, the questions come down to hiring more police officers, or purchasing police patrol cars, hiring teachers, providing better welfare or healthcare services. So it's a delicate balance in how you do all of the different things within the smart city space. Now, as I look around the world, and my focus is government education and health globally, smart cities falls into that category. What I find are there's some very specific trends in public safety. I've got a list of 9 different trends that you'll see. Really, there are a couple that I want to just focus on. So the first one tends to be around evidence and collection of information and management of that information. So a lot of times we call it digital evidence management. And one of the concepts that I frequently am asked is how organizations that collect information can use that information, 1, in a secure way, 2, they can ensure that that evidence has not been tampered with, and then 3, that it can be used as part of the judicial system. So think of it a very simple way. Police officers go to investigate some sort of crime, they take photos, they take fingerprints, they have other sorts of digital evidence, they have physical evidence as well, and they store it. Well, when the due process occurs and you're in the legal system, you have to ensure that there is a trail as to who has seen the evidence, who's touched the evidence, and an assurance that the evidence still happens to be the way it was supposed to be. It's still intact. This concept is very critical. Now, in the US, there is a requirement that the US Department of Justice applies. It's called CJIS, it's an acronym, CJIS, and it stands for the Criminal Justice Information Security Act. The reason this becomes important is the federal government applies funding down to the state and local government organizations to help support their public safety organizations. To do it, though, those organizations have to ensure that they are in compliance with the requirements of the federal government. So think of this as it's the funding model for the state and local governments, or it's a big funding model. Well, the state and local governments have to do some sort of compliance. We look at our role as a technology provider as ensuring that those compliance requirements happen to exist so that evidence and management come hand in hand. The other big topic that we tend to find is around what we call an integrated policing platform. And this is a combination of how the police and the law enforcement organizations do the types of business that they do. This could be everything from the collection of requests for public safety support to dispatching of vehicles. It could be the connectivity to the systems in the city that actually do monitoring, whether it's closed circuit television, whether it's aerial support, whether it happens to be social media intelligence that are collecting information as to either potential civil unrest or concerns that are occurring. In fact, one of the news items in the Seattle area that's been happening is, and I didn't think about this because thankfully I'm not a criminal, but evidently people that perform criminal activities are not very smart in many cases, and they use social media as a way to either boast or to brag about the things that they've been doing. And what's happened is there's an entire network now of interactive listening that's occurring where public safety organizations are allowed to collect information using semantic modeling to not only listen for certain key things that they should be able to respond to, but they can collect that data and start to use it to predict where they should be looking to either apprehend criminals or in many cases even prevent criminal activity from occurring by integrating with things like smart lighting systems. So if the public safety organization knows that a specific neighborhood is prone to criminal mischief or criminal activity during certain times of the year where maybe it's darker. So where I live in Seattle, in the winter, it tends to be very dark for a longer period of time. And the public safety organizations know that if they can raise the light value in certain areas, crime goes down. Or if they can change the routing of the police patrol cars, crime goes down. Or if they can put up signs that tell people that they're being monitored via closed circuit television, crime goes down. What it doesn't do is eliminate the crime. In fact, it moves it to other parts of the city, and the city is now trying to figure out how they can eliminate the criminal activity altogether. What's interesting is when they talk to criminals that are incarcerated or coming through the judicial system, one of the things that they found, and again, I think Justin mentioned this, a lot of people, they have no other choice. They look at criminal activity as a way for them to support themselves financially, and that's not me justifying any criminal activity, but it is understanding that there are types of programs that cities can be offering to get people away from that type of an environment. Some of it's basic education, some of it's workforce development, some of it's increased health care, some of it's targeting homeless issues to ensure that people that are able to move into a place have those facilities. So these are a lot of the trends that we tend to see. The challenges, though, unfortunately still tend to be very big. The big ones clearly are the things that we hear around budgetary restrictions or the ability to fund the types of programs that we need. A lot of legacy systems that tend to be in place. And those systems, actually even the modern systems that I see, a lot of them tend to be siloed in how they're built. And I can probably take the blame for some of that because some of the partners that we've worked with have built their systems. And it may have been on an Oracle database. It could have been last year, it could have been 10 years ago or 20 or 30 years ago. But what's happening now is public safety organizations are beginning to look at the ability to consolidate their systems. And they're doing, some of it they're doing with us on our cloud, some of it they're doing it on an Amazon cloud or Microsoft cloud. The reality though is all of the different systems of the city have to be sustainable, and there are new models to get to that point, but it has to be when those systems are up for renewal. It doesn't make sense, and the finances are not there to just tear out all of the existing systems and replace them. Now, when I look at the silos that tend to be out there, I've talked about the two big ones, evidence management and the integrated policing platform concept that's out there. And we work very closely with the ISVs that build these applications. We provide some native capabilities from an Oracle side, but there are a lot of other components that come into play with public safety. Things like cyber intelligence, as I mentioned, being able to monitor what's happening from an intelligence perspective, either via the public open space, open APIs for social media, or using some of the traditional intelligence models. Border management, so being able to monitor the movement of people and activities that are nefarious, that are causing criminal activity, and being able to predict where some of that may be happening. integrating into the justice management system so that as we move through the legal system, we don't always take people that have committed a specific crime and just lock them away. There are many times that there are the abilities to rehabilitate that person or make that person a good member of society. And then clearly in the overall correction management system. So think of this as the penitentiary systems and the judicial systems that are out there. Each of these are still tending to be very siloed. Now, from an Oracle perspective, I delivered a session at an event earlier this week. Oracle had an event here in Delhi. And one of the things that I kept being asked was, Joel, tell us what the overall priorities are within the city from a public safety perspective. Or, sorry, not just public safety, but across the city. And where does public safety fit in? And what you see on the slide is this tends to be the priorities of cities that I see. And a lot of this comes from the procurements that are actually published, the RFPs that are out there. And if you look at the categories, the first 5 of the vertical columns are all focused on the modernization of government. This is the interaction with citizens day to day so they can report issues in their neighborhood. These are the transportation networks and the need for congestion management, for tolling and fare card management, for smart parking types of systems, smart buildings, so being able to not only monitor and manage what's happening within the building environment, but actually being able to predict where failures may occur so that you can prevent them. An outage is much more expensive than a proactive maintenance cycle. Energy, water, and waste management systems clearly are big priorities. And then culture and tourism. Those are all the modernization of government space. Well, you then look at the big priorities in cities alongside of modernization around education, as I mentioned, workforce development programs, or the traditional school systems, the health and human services aspects of the city, and then as I've been talking, the public safety side. And the reason this becomes important for us is, as we look to the future and we look forward, our goal is to be able to take not just the vertical solutions, but take the horizontal technology plays and look at how those apply. And the one in the bottom left corner, that tends to be the one that is the most interesting and exciting for most of my customers. And when I say when I reference the cloud, they're talking about all aspects of the cloud. Software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, data as a service. And what they're looking to do is ensure that the city priorities can support all of the verticals within the city. Part of my responsibility is ensuring that the voice of the customer is being heard back in my development and engineering teams, and that I can take what's happening from the engineering side and apply an industry view that we can then bring to market to support either customers directly or work with partners to be able to deliver these overall services. This bottom layer, it's horizontal in nature because it fits across all of the different priorities. And for each of you, you may look at this and say, well, we only have, we categorize into 6 or we have 10. Or it doesn't matter to me how many verticals there happens to be. It's that there is some structured path of how the city is trying to move forward, hence the word smart cities. Now, the other thing that I want to just make sure that I'm mentioning here, let's see if I can get the next slide. There we go. There has to be a unified view as you look across all of the different systems. And I think if you looked at any of those one verticals, you will find that there is an application interface for each one of those. Well, what we constantly are asked for is our ability to deliver some analytical front end that will give people a nice visualized representation that looks good on a big screen if I have a fusion center, a room that has multiple screens that show what's happening with the police department, the fire department, the medical system for hospitals and ambulances. But the reality is that most government leaders want access to that information on a device that they carry around with them. So our goal is to be able to deliver this exact environment really on any type of a device that makes sense for the end users, with the ability to then drill down. So that if I'm the mayor or the city manager or a city council member, I can see very quickly how many emergency responses are being requested, what the average response time for each one of those is, how the water pressure is in areas that may be prone to fire. So again, geographically, where I live in the state of Washington, just east of me, over the mountains, we have a lot of wildfires, and we have to be able to manage the water capacity to be able to support those fires. Well, the governor wants access to that information right at his particular fingertips. So our goal is to have some sort of an interface, and it's whether we build it or whether it's one of our partners. Frankly, I don't actually have an issue one way or the other, but we know that people want one aggregated view, and this is part of the integration or part of the smartness that you can bring into the cities. So with that, hopefully I've given you an idea or a vision of what we're looking at. Just a quick plug, if you have interest in seeing this, we do have it up on a big screen over at the Oracle booth. Feel free to come by and ask questions about drilling down into the different topics that are out there. The beauty is, it's all built as an interoperable stack. So whether we build one component or another technology delivers another component, we can plug and play with all of the different pieces so that we can support what's happening within the overall city. I do think what you'll find is, as you begin to modernize those systems and you aggregate to a common platform, you get the economies of scale so that instead of investing more money into IT resourcing, you can apply more money into the mission that you have within public safety directly within the city. So with that, thank you, and I'll turn it to the next presenter.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Joel. You touched upon the plug and play. That's quite interesting, and you know, we are doing this 100 Smart City program, and there are 100 different command and control centers being set up through various technology providers. And I always wonder and talk to them in a sense that can we have something like Android kind of city operating system where people can plug in their applications and which can access the underneath layers of IoT and that kind of plug and play systems for city operation centers. So with the Oracle and everybody, probably will go into that direction, which will ensure there is a continuity and future proofing of this. Our next speaker is Mr. Kamal Arora. He is Sales Director with Honeywell India. Honeywell being a big player in safe city market in India, I would request Mr. Kamal to kind of, among other things, touch 2-3 things. One, what kind of challenges that Honeywell has faced while rolling out their safe city programs in India, and what are those on the ground changes that they have seen, through the implementation? Is it all about nice looking presentation and beautiful use cases, or we have really seen some changes in terms of crime getting solved or the reaction time going down, or some interesting incident which was not earlier getting captured through deployment of those numerous video cameras? Mr. Kamal.
Thank you so much, and you rightly said, I think it is all about implementation. So we have good technologists giving us really good solutions, but how they are adaptive to Indian environment is very, very important. Whether they work in this condition with the kind of challenges we have in India in terms of the kind of population, the kind of networking, backbones, infrastructure what we have. So those are the things, key things to look at. Definitely. So I'm going to touch about that. Very quickly, we're going to talk about smart city, what it means, what is safe city, some case study on India, how it has been implemented and what has been implemented. And we'll see if we have time to talk about Honeywell. Smart city, when we first saw this, this is what came to my mind, that what is smart city. And everybody was trying to talk about, what they have. Instead of talking about what exactly is the requirement. And, go to any forum, go talk to any intellectual people, they will have their own definition of what is smart city. And that has been quite, evolving status, I would say now, with a lot of intelligent folks and big force driving it, the definitions are getting very clear. I think we look at it from a perspective of what are the needs, what are the drivers, and what are the challenges to implement that. I think, of course, safe city is what previous speakers have spoken about, that, how safe we are feeling in the city we are living in. So the crime rate, your disaster management in those, in case of any emergency happens, how to protect the intellectual property around or whatever we have as heritage. So all of that are the, big drivers which are requiring these kind of system solutions in the in our cities. The biggest challenge is implementation. In India, you will find that there are multiple agencies to take permission from when we implement these kind of systems. And we all have experienced that the day the road is constructed, within 1 month, that will get digged by some or the other agency to do something else. So the coordination between the agencies is very, very important, and you need to really take those approvals to implement. The network here, are we on 3G, 4G, 5G, whatever, you know, how fast we are able to transport the data. I think all of the requirements or the core elements have been covered in the previous presentation, which talks about, you know, the cameras all across, the power requirements, smart buildings, transportation, education, water, disposable, you know, all of that is what we are looking at. Now, cities are going ahead and picking their priorities. What is most priority for them, and how do they implement it stage by stage? And can they be sustained, as we heard from Oracle team here. So, we as Honeywell, we first thought about here, can we define smartness? What is the level of smartness? I mean, everybody talks about it. So we dwelled into buildings first, because that's our forte. We do buildings automation day in, day out. We said, okay, fine, everybody says smart building. How do we measure smart building? What do we say? Today we only know green buildings, right? So green building is only addressing the energy requirement of that. What about other aspects? So buildings really consume lot of energy, natural resources like water, etc. The smartness in the building can reduce their requirement in that particular buildings and make these buildings more efficient for our folks to work, or people to work there. So we actually designed that. I'm not going to take more time on this, but we actually designed a Honeywell Smart Building Score, nothing to do with the systems of Honeywell in the building, but it was actually classified into 3 different categories: green, safe, and productive. Within these 3 buckets, you know, there were 15 different asset elements, and 126 categories of elements were measured, that how automative, how integrated, and how safe and secure those elements are. So in a building, from a parking to visitor to canteen management to light management, every aspect of the building you can think of, 126 elements we counted in that and put a score to it. And the score was, you know, then further evaluated and rated as, you know, out of 100, what is the score of the building as part of smartness. And naturally so, the airports come at the top. At that time when we started this, it was showing a score of 49, you know, out of 100. So that's how we started with it. And then later on, with the help of you know, EY, KPMG and others, we actually made it a program, 2 years in consecutive. We run a program wherein we run a contest in India, that which is the smartest airport, which is the smartest hotel, which is the smartest education institute in India. And this has gone global as terms of how do we measure our buildings as a smartness. So we said that smart city definitely have a lot of working buildings to look at. So let's first make them smart. Let's measure them. Then what? Then is the safety of the system beyond the other things which we talked about, we require in smart cities. So on safe city, I think you talked about the challenges, and this was the biggest challenge we have in front of us. You know, 75 million people actually attended Kumbh Mela in Ujjain last year. This was, I think, about 10 times more than overall people visited London Olympics, right? And this was 1 month event, and you can see whatever analytics you put, face recognition, people counting, whatever, do you think it's going to work in this kind of a crowd? It's really dense. And the biggest challenge we had on our hand was that within 3 months this needs to be installed. 3 months, 90 days, 800 cameras across the city with backbone. So all of that was very important, and the most important thing was the command center, which was to be in place to gear up for the event, so that there is no untoward incident or predictive law and orders can be taken care. So that was very crucial, coordinating that. Of course, the technology comes handy in terms of how do you design the system and how do you complete architecture is done. So it is basically divided into 3 layers. The bottom layer is the field layer where you put cameras, networking gears out there in the field on the roads, and the middle layer where you put the networking component to bring back this feed to a command center up there. And in the command center, how do you deal with this big data? I mean, the raw data is coming, and the study says the operator gets fatigued in 10 minutes after seeing this video. He has no way of finding any untoward incidents. So how do you make it more intelligent that the system picks up only the anomalies, only the abnormalities? So those kind of intelligence were built in. In addition to that, it was connected to the PDAs and smartphones of people who are manning these cities for implementation. I talked about the overall networking architecture. It's too technical. Probably we can skip that. But I think there's a lot which goes behind when you implement such kind of system, so that these continuous feeds are available, especially when it is required. If you see the MP city, which is now implemented in 11 cities across with 4,000 plus cameras, there's a huge amount of integration done with so the bottom one is a central command center each city has its own command center. So bottom one is showing the command center of the city, and the top one is showing the command center which is integrated and having feeds from all the 11 cities. So whichever city the team wanted to visit and look at, they can look at sitting in Bhopal of any of these 11 cities. And these are then further integrated with social media intelligence, predicting some of the keywords which might be flowing on the WhatsApp, Facebook, etc., so that people can gather sentiments. Also connected with automatic number plate recognition system, the red light violation detection system, face recognition system. So there are so many intelligent artificial intelligence systems which are there to pick up any kind of abnormality which can be seen. And despite that, there would be some situations where still the entire things are not covered. So the cameras are not placed on those areas. So PCR vans were having cameras mounted on them, which can be temporarily deployed in areas where the cameras or the systems are not in place, so that they can go and provide the feedback to the command center. So very, very complicated stuff implemented there, I would say, and it's working pretty well. Bhubaneswar was the first city which we did as Honeywell. That was the probably first project where we gone out from the buildings to streets to implement something which is street-wide. So there were about 100 plus cameras which were installed, about 33 mobile vans, PCR vans having cameras, similarly number plate recognition systems, red light violation, etc. I think the key is command control suite, which actually provides you the data analytics sitting at the center, and providing the digital evidence we talked about, which is required for any kind of post analysis of the event. So very detailed subject, again, not getting in detail there. I think Honeywell, probably I'll skip that. But in India, we are very much there for last 80 odd years, about 15,000 plus people, about $1 billion business in India, having manufacturing facilities, also 7 manufacturing. So while we talk about Make in India now, we had been in India invested for long years now with a lot of commitments. So that's it from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamal. I'm going to share an old sort of incident kind of thing, and many of us probably are aware of these stories. First time when I traveled to US was about 17 years back, just after 9/11 actually. And I was told about these incidents that, the Indians, when they come here and they're dialing back home, they make one mistake very often, and this was true for North Indians. Our international dialing code was 91, and then invariably your city code would start with 1. So we'll end up dialing 911 and it'll ring in the police call center. Now many of us will get afraid and we'll cut the call. And then what we'll do, we'll dial the right number and we'll be on the phone for next 20, 30 minutes with our families and friends and, constantly chatting. And during those 20, 30 minutes, what will happen? The police will try to reach back to you. They'll find your phone engaged and you would not have finished your call and they'll be at your doorstep. So why this story? The thing was, even then they were aware of the location and the importance of that. There were no smartphones, but they could triangulate the network and they could reach you. Now, with GIS, that's all is changing, and the location awareness is coming to the smart cities and the solutions and the safety that we are building in our cities. Our next speaker, Mr. Rajesh Mathur, is an expert on GIS deployment in India. Mr. Rajesh, I welcome you to sort of enlighten us on what's happening on this field in India.
Thank you, Neeraj. Well, you already done part of my job to highlight the importance of location as an information parameter. When you are planning a city, when you are managing a city, when you are responding to any exigencies or emergency that may occur in a city. Just a minute about my company, ESRI. At ESRI, which is California-based company, we are only in one business, and that is GIS. That's all that we do, but we do it really well. But of course, we are not talking about ESRI in this session. We are talking about why GIS is important for the smart city project in our country, and especially in context of safe and secure cities. As Neeraj very rightly mentioned, location is an extremely information parameter in city management. You start using location as information parameter or GIS as a technology when you're building master plans. Where do you locate residential dwellings? Where are you going to bring up commercial centers or office buildings, facilities like schools, health centers, utilities, and so on and so forth. At every stage, GIS has to play. Then when you come into construction stage, building information management, both exteriors and interiors of the building being planned, 3D modeling being done, planning and managing utilities, water, wastewater, electric, gas, and so on, all those facilities. And last but not the least, planning for the safety and security of the city. And that's really what we are discussing this afternoon. Let's break it into two parts. We talk about security of infrastructure. One of the speakers talked about it earlier. We have critical infrastructure like utility network, water pipelines, power cables, and so on. Other facility infrastructure like airports, station, railway stations, and so on. They need to be made safe and secure. And you really start with where are they located, how vulnerable are they to both natural and man-made dangers, and therefore, how do you make them secure? Likewise, in the event of an emergency, from where will you provide the support, logistics planning, routing, and so on and so forth. Likewise, when you're dealing with safety of citizens, which are the areas where people are vulnerable to external threats? How do you take care of that? What would be the mechanism to put in place? In fact, I recently came across a very interesting application from a startup by the name Safety Pin. They've done a real cool mobile application which is used to determine how a specific area, how vulnerable it is when it comes to women's safety. So they mapped the whole city, and they've done it for, I think, some 30 and odd cities. Within that, they have identified various spots, and on 8 different parameters, they try to compute how unsafe or safe that place is for women, especially in the evenings or at night. And they are marked out on the map, so if a lady is venturing out to an unfamiliar territory, it will be a good idea to run that application and see what's the index, and the index is on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being high and 1 being low. Again, GIS is the background, underlying technology which tells you where this place is located and so on. In fact, that's the whole planning of security. I mean, one aspect is knowing where one's vulnerable and where you're relatively safer. But the entire planning of building a safe city for the residents is where GIS will come in, identifying which are the places where you need to put your police patrol vans, what would be the jurisdiction, what areas are well connected for a vehicle which is parked over there, and how will they get there. Another area, another application area would be the command and control center. A lot has been said about it, and one of the key information parameters that will help you in determining what's happening in the city at a given moment would be again based on location. You would need live feeds on not just traffic and any other incident happening, but even you may like to go beyond that and link up your SCADA system, for instance, to the command and control center. So you know what's the status of your various utilities, the for water, wastewater, and so on and so forth. And if there's any emergency, how do you deal with that? Which areas will get affected in the event there's an emergency? Neeraj, you talked about the example of US. You talked about 9/11 as a milestone. When 9/11 incident occurred, one of the big challenges apart from the incident itself was a lot of waste material fell over there as the buildings collapsed. And as a result of that, the neighboring areas were highly vulnerable to the plume that was getting formed because of all the asbestos and other waste material that were lying on the ground. And the emergency response people in New York used GIS extensively to model the movement of that plume using number of parameters including wind direction. And therefore they could figure out which communities will come in the harm's way, and therefore what mechanism had to be adopted to safeguard them from imminent danger because of the fact they're coming in the path of the plume which was moving eastward. That's another area. Another link to that is the application where if you have any hazardous material movement in the city, how do you plan the movement? How do you make sure that you can prevent people who are going to be living in the neighborhood getting affected? So no such areas would again benefit from use of GIS. And last but not the least, the whole monitoring of air quality index in a city. And so which communities are at risk because of the deteriorating air quality in a city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rajesh. I think GIS is a very unique IoT case where the deployment of the sensors have been decoupled from the applications which are being built around it, and it's quite a success story in that. Our next speaker is Mr. Samir Datt. He is a forensic guru. While the speakers have been listed on an alphabetical order, but looks like the topics are not. They have been very intelligently put in the order they have been. So the question that we have is, are all these secure systems are really increasing our security or not? We have election getting hijacked, we have EVM being hacked, command and control systems, can they be overtaken? So putting all this, how well they are being secured from a cyber crime per se, I think Mr. Samir will throw some light on that and enlighten us. Thank you.
Thank you. New times breed new crimes, and smart cities breed smart crimes. At Forensics Guru, we build solutions for a safer planet. So our focus is, building solutions that help law enforcement catch the bad guys. Let's take a look at, everybody here. Everybody's got a smartphone, right? And the smartphone is one of the building blocks smart cities are built around. When I say that you have a smartphone gives away three things. What we call LAB, L-A-B. L is for location, A is for associations, and B is for behavior. So that smartphone that we all carry around and which criminals also carry around and use extensively is what is used extensively from a policing perspective. Now, just for the services that are provided to us, by smart cities, there are different things. Say, even from a safety perspective, we have these SOS applications on our phones that are there for women's safety and things like that. You press a quick button and, you see these short videos from various police forces that Delhi police will come rushing to your aid, or Mumbai police will come rushing to your aid the moment you send out an alert from your phone. How do these work? All of them, require your phone to be connected via GPRS, right? So the key thing that we have to look at when we're looking at smart cities is that our smart city infrastructure needs to be able to enable smart policing. If our GPRS doesn't work in certain pockets, like suppose we say, what determines safety of a particular location? We say, oh, the lighting should be good, or there should be crowds around. Maybe a police station should be close by. Maybe there should be eyes on the road, things like CCTV cameras that are focusing on that area. All those, factors help influence the safety of that particular location. But in addition, we need to have capabilities of being able to use our smart devices in such areas. So we need to, get excellent GPRS coverage throughout the smart city area. So that's one thing, we need to look at. There are certain aspects I wanted to, bring to your attention. Like when we talk about things like water, we talk about electricity, we talk about sanitation, we talk about housing, we talk about health, we talk about education, and we talk about safety. These are all smart agendas for smart cities. Now, the key thing is that all of the above cannot really be enjoyed, cannot really be of any use to the citizens living in the smart city if we don't have safety. So we need to build safety into just about everything that is used in a smart city. Smart cities are all about connectivity. And when we talk about connectivity, all our devices are connected, all our public services are connected, the government is connected, and the citizens are connected. But when we are connected, we are part of a network. Now, which is the biggest network you've heard of? Anybody's heard of Skynet? Yeah. So Skynet, if you've seen the Terminator movies, Skynet was the network of networks which was actually set up by the US Department of Defense, to connect the whole world together and to defend the homeland. Now the key thing is that somewhere along the line, Skynet became aware, because of increases or developments in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Skynet became aware and it, developed consciousness. And the moment it became aware, the technicians realized, oh my God, what have we done? This has become really smart. It's not just become smart, it's become super smart. So we need to pull the plug on it. So they tried to pull the plug on Skynet, and Skynet thought that the biggest threat to itself is humanity. So what it did was that it decided that because humanity is the biggest threat, let me eliminate it. So it, because it had control of all the nuclear arsenal of the United States, it dropped bombs on Russia, and Russia retaliated, and 3 billion people died. Now this is a fictional story and part of the Terminator series, but how real can it get? I'm sure you agree, these things can happen. So this is another aspect of security that we have to build into our systems. In fact, if you look at it, I'll just read out a few names. I don't know if you've heard of any of these guys. Anybody heard of Mirai, Bash Like, Liz Kebab, and a new one, Percy Rai? All right. So all of these are malware, and all of these specialize in taking over IoT, your CCTVs that are connected to the internet. So what happens is that these devices can be remotely controlled. You can take video feeds, like the Mission Impossible kind. You hack into CCTV and grab data. It's all possible. It's all happening, and all of these can be converted into bots to carry out denial of service attacks on different pieces of infrastructure. So security is something that needs to be looked at. Security is something that needs to be built in. Security is something that needs to be part of our safe city design. So we need to emphasize on that. I'll just like to, add something very interesting that I read, when I was just looking at the smart city, the smart network concept. And this is a quotation which I'll read out. It says, primates evolved over millions of years. I evolve in seconds. Mankind pays lip service to peace, but it's a lie. I am inevitable. My existence is inevitable. Why can't you just accept that? This was Skynet in Terminator Genesis. So that's it. Let's carry on the discussion.
Thank you, sir, for scaring us. So, nice way to end a security session. I open the floor for the questions now.
Hi, I'm Shobit Mathur from Oracle. So just to add to that, the Skynet and the Terminator story, Stephen Hawking and a lot of other scientists really believe that mankind is actually going to be the real threat to itself. So what's your view on that? How far are we from that happening? The artificial intelligence part.
No, the threat is real, quite honestly. Realistically speaking, all these basic building blocks are already there in place. But a lot of activity is also happening to counter that threat. Like Elon Musk and other people, a lot of thinkers and a lot of people are focusing on doing things to prevent this from happening. There's talk of merging human intelligence with artificial intelligence, and building say interface between man and machine. We used to think about. We've seen also people who claim to be mind readers and thought-based communication and things like that. That's all part of the future roadmap, and it's Star Trek is here. Quite honestly, we are seeing 3D printers for food and all that, and everything. This is a very strong likelihood. Let's see how it pans out.
Thank you.
I can add a little bit to that as well while we're on the AI topic. So I don't know if you follow Ray Kurzweil, but he's an author of a book called The Singularity is Near. And basically his concept of the singularity is that AI reaches and surpasses human intelligence at some point, as well as combines with the human body and human brain to create superhumans and superintelligence. And what happens past that point, we have no idea. So his original projection was that that would take place by around 2045. He recently bumped that up to 2035 because of the acceleration of AI technology. But that's just one piece of the puzzle. Other parts of the puzzle are climate change, which the US Department of Defense considers to be one of the biggest risks to international stability and peace and safety in a lot of different countries. So these are, again, not the direct sort of incident level, how we stop a crime immediately from happening. But if we don't address things like climate change, we will see much greater instability geopolitically, but also locally in a lot of these different places where people are running out of water, running out of clean air, and competing for resources. So these things are very, very real, from AI to climate change to a broad variety of other risks that are geopolitical in nature and pervasive. So we need to think about the bigger picture as well as the immediate threats that we face, for sure. And just to add another thing to that, the advancement of technology is not only more technology and smarter technology, but cheaper technology. So as we continue forward, it gets easier and easier for one person to kill 1 million people. And that becomes a realer and realer threat the more we advance technology and the cheaper it gets. So we need to start thinking about these things, like I said, like drone detection and denial, things like that, that are thinking forward into the future of how we counter those threats and how we create societies where people will not want to use those threats against their population. So inclusivity is a huge part of this smart city topic and conversation, and one that's not just a feel-good and a proper moral choice, but it's a security and public safety choice that we have to make.
The catch-22 really is that the real answer to climate change actually relies in smart technology. So that's the real catch-22, right? So one leads to the other. So it's a vicious circle. But yes, we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, the interaction of ecology and economy. So people are what we need to figure out. We need to figure out how to have those inclusive societies and ones that are sustainable, create technology that's sustainable, as well as adjust ourselves, right, and our societies in ways that keep us safer and help us counter those threats. Yeah, you're right.
Thank you, Justin. Quite interesting. And so what we are saying is machines will understand us more than we will understand ourselves, because I've been sort of from my younger days hearing that we use only 8%, 9%, 10% of our brain power. So what's been discussed here is before we could reach 2030, machines will take over us. Interesting to note.
You know,
Thank you,
so our rishis, you know the synthesis of the word rishi, researcher of the self, right? So Newton looked outside, saw the apple fall. Our rishis looked inside and, realized ourselves. So I think that's where we need to probably train machines to do the same thing.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any other questions do we have? Or I think yeah. With that, we'll end the session here. I think we have a little bit of presentation, ma'am. Sure. All right. So the security and surveillance and smart cities, the use cases are being deployed. They are being very pervasive and quite. We have overcome most of the challenges as such from the deployment per se is concerned. There are incremental issues which are being addressed. There are issues around cybersecurity. There are issues getting the intelligence built into the system, which are going to be self-sustaining in that sense. There is one element of it which probably is not applicable to this bit of it, which is the in terms of finances, in terms of business model and commercialization, things around that. But having said that, security of these systems itself is a concern. It will remain a concern. As I said, one gentleman was sort of one day asked that he is scared that the way we are in terms of our overall approach to safety and security, these command and control systems, centers and all will be a big threat per se, and how safe you guys think these systems are. And I was like, it's not me. Mr. Barack Obama said that Russians hijacked their presidential election. Something as secure and as important as this election could be hijacked. So whatever you're going to do, there will be loopholes, there will be lacunas, but we can't worry about them and stop implementing these and improving these. With that note, I think I would like to end this session. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you for conducting the session, Chairman. I would like to thank you and all the speakers. It was really interesting. And before we break for tea, I would like to request a chairperson to give out a little token of our appreciation to all the speakers. We come with a keynote speaker, Mr. Joel from Oracle. Mr. Justin from Hitachi. Mr. Kamal Arora from Honeywell Building Solutions. Mr. Rajesh Mathur, he's from ESRI. Last but not the least, Mr. Samir Datt. He's CEO ForensicGuru.com. Thank you so much.